Chancellor, we now come to the conferment of an honorary degree of the University of Greenwich, and I call upon Professor Elizabeth Meerabeau to present to you the Right Honourable Baroness Gould of Potter Newton.
Chancellor. Joyce Brenda Gould, Baroness Gould of Potter Newton, grew up in Yorkshire, God's own county. She was educated at Roundhay High School for Girls and then studied pharmacy at Bradford Technical College. From 1952 to 1965, she was a dispensing chemist and can recall how French letters at Boots were kept on the lowest shelf under the counter and handed over in a brown paper bag. Men would blush or run out of the shop when they saw a woman behind the counter. Now condoms can be picked up from the shelf at a supermarket, showing how much our attitudes have changed, perhaps. But we cannot take such freedoms for granted. More sinister were Widow Welch's pills. Sold ostensibly as a tonic, both patient and pharmacist knew that they were in fact an abortifacient for terminating a pregnancy. These examples illustrate how the importance of our knowing our recent history in order not to lose freedoms and choices that we have. Baroness Gould has been interested in women's issues since her late teens. She campaigned against the closure of family planning clinics in the 1950s and later campaigned for the 1967 Abortion Act. In 1969, she became Assistant Regional Organiser and Women's Officer for the Labour Party, and then Assistant National Agent and Chief Women's Officer. In that role, she played a crucial part in defeating a 1970s anti-abortion bill, against which all Labour MPs were encouraged to vote. From 1985 to 1993, she was Director of Organisation in the Labour Party, and then entered the House of Lords as a Labour peer in 1993. Since 2000, she has been president of the Family Planning Association, an organisation which believes in the importance of, and I quote, honest, straightforward dialogue on sex, relationships and sexual health. She became an honorary fellow of the Faculty of Sexual and Reproductive Health Care in 2006, and of the British Association for Sexual Health and HIV in 2007. She was chair of the Women's National Commission between May 2007 and December 2010. Between 2003 and 2010, she chaired the Independent Advisory Group on Sexual Health, created by the 2001 Sexual Health Strategy and lost in the recent bonfire of the Quangos. This opened up her thinking to wider issues such as HIV and the importance of men's health. The members of the IAG were experts, including doctors, nurses and health visitors. She was concerned before the first meeting that she would not know what they were talking about, but everyone learned from each other. Experts in HIV learned more about contraception. One of the grandest members of the IAG, who used to look down on nurses as lowly beings, is now one of their biggest champions. Sexual health is clearly a public health issue, as recognised in the 2003 Public Health White Paper and the recent Health and Social Care Bill. There are concerns, however, about how sexual health services will be affected by the proposals for the reform of the NHS, such as the local authority health and wellbeing boards, which bring together local authorities and health services, but will need to show their effectiveness. Baroness Gould is particularly concerned about the lack of sexual knowledge in young women, a subject which has been researched by our colleague Leslie Hogarth. Currently in schools, there may be some reference to HIV in biology classes and some sex education, but it is patchy and needs to be linked more to education about relationships and life in general. The recent Bailey review captures what some parents' views are, but we need to know much more about what young people think and particularly how they assess risk. As referred to earlier, an important part of our education should be to know our recent history. Baroness Gould is perturbed that many young people are unaware of the 1967 Abortion Act and the difficult lives many women led before it was passed. She says, people assume that what we have now is what we always have had, and they don't think that current freedoms can be lost. A recent survey of over 700 medical students, published in the Journal of Medical Ethics, found that between a fifth and a third would not perform an abortion in particular circumstances. They may perhaps benefit, these students, from more insight into how people's lives can go awry. Current sexual health provision is patchy. The 2007 All-Party Parliamentary and Sexual Health Group survey of primary care trusts found that only 5% of general practices provided testing and diagnosis of sexually transmitted infections, and at least 70% of women were not being offered the full range of contraceptive methods. And services were not being targeted to reduce unintended pregnancies in women over the age of 18, although in fact the termination rate is as high or higher in women in their 20s. This picture was summed up by Baroness Gould as erratic, uncoordinated and poorly planned, with too many PCTs unaware of what was happening on their own doorstep. She is also insistent on the need for more coordinated services and on greater accessibility, including the development of nurse-led services. It does not make sense for nurses and patients to sit waiting for the doctor to start a clinic, as she observed when she visited clinics as chair of the advisory group. She is, however, concerned at the variability of nursing education nationally, and has discussed this with the regulatory body, the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Some practice nurses, for example, have little sexual health education, and yet it is central to their role. Sexual dysfunction, in particular, is often not taken seriously, but it is an important problem in many long-term illnesses, such as diabetes, heart disease, and depression, and is often suffered in silence. As she says, an awful lot of things don't come to the surface. We also need greater sensitivity to the different ways in which people live their lives. Issues which are unseen and not generally known about become invisibilized, to use a phrase of Foucault's, used by my colleague David Evans in his successful thesis on sexual education in nursing, for which he received his Ed.D. this week in this university. Baroness Gould's relationship to the University of Greenwich is exemplified through her support of the Sexual Health Skills distance learning course which David leads, developed by the Royal College of Nursing and now delivered by the School of Health and Social Care with RCN approval. Over 1,700 students have undertaken this course since 2004, and we are delighted that, of course, we have just had some successful students in sexual health receiving their awards this morning. In the School of Health and Social Care, we are keen to develop our work on sexual health through research, teaching and policy development, in which both Leslie Hogarth and Ros Delaney have been involved. We have, for example, worked closely with the Metro Centre, which provides services for lesbian, gay, bisexual and transsexual young people, helping to develop their research skills. This is an important aspect of our work, and we are delighted today to honour Baroness Gould, who has worked so tirelessly in the field of sexual health. In summary, Baroness Gould is a fearless champion of sexual health and HIV client care, services and education. Whether defending equality of rights, promoting topics and services which others have had difficulty in supporting and talking about, or protecting an individual's right to choose, she is determined in her resolve. As a member of the Bevan Society, which aims to support and promote the values held by Aneurin Bevan, the founder of the National Health Service, she will know his quote, "Discontent arises from a knowledge of the possible as contrasted with the actual. We should foster this discontent and use it to achieve the possible and help to improve people's lives." And now, Chancellor, I have the honour and privilege of presenting to you Baroness Gould of Potter Newton for conferment of the degree of Doctor of the University of Greenwich, honoris causa.
Baroness Gould of Potter Newton, by virtue of the powers vested in me as Chancellor of the University of Greenwich, I have much pleasure in conferring upon you the degree of Doctor of the University of Greenwich, honoris causa.